Oi oi, and welcome to the Ant-Man review. Now, this is the final movie of Phase 2. Took me a hell of a long time to review all the Phase 2 films. Way longer than it took me to review all the Phase 1 films. And I won't be surprised if it takes me even longer to review Phase 3 because there's like double the amount of movies. But anyway, yeah, we're here to talk about Ant-Man, the sixth and final movie of Phase 2. And it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one because it's one of two starts to new franchises in Phase 2, the other one being Guardians of the Galaxy. That one turned out really well. So did Ant-Man turn out really well? We'll talk about it. So Scott Lang's Ant-Man is a new character. He was introduced in this film, and they had to get us to like this character, or else the film would probably not be that great. And man, we do indeed like him, and they do a good job at getting us to like this character, especially since he's a thief. So it was even harder for us to like him since he's a criminal. But man, he's just such a lovable guy, and that can be down to Paul Rudd's performance and how Paul Rudd is just genuinely a likable guy. And when you see him on screen, it's just enjoyable, really, isn't it? He's just got such a funny and great personality. Like, how could you not love him? And something that this film did that I actually do quite like is how he wasn't the first Ant-Man. And so he's not made any of this technology, so he's pretty much just a massive noob.
I think this regulator is holding me
Do
back.
not screw with the regulator. If that regulator is compromised, you would go subatomic.
What does that mean?
It means that you would enter a quantum realm.
What does that mean?
It means that you would enter a reality where all concepts of time and space become irrelevant as you shrink for all eternity. Everything that you know and love, gone forever.
Cool. Yeah. If it ain't broke.
The guy is nothing like a superhero, so this is completely new to him. At least Captain America, even before he got the powers that he has, he at least had the personality of a superhero and the courage. This man, he was just a thieving little shit, and a bit silly. He was just a bit of a silly thief. That was all he was. So to see someone really inexperienced, become a superhero so suddenly was pretty fun to watch, not gonna lie. So the man went from dirty criminal to full-on superhero, which is a pretty interesting redemption, if you ask me. It's not often in the MCU we really get heroes like this, whether you are just sort of looked down upon in society at first and seen as scum, but then they work their way up to literally becoming superheroes who save the world. The only other time I can think of this happening in the MCU on top of my head is Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think both of these movies handled this whole superhero origin thing really well. And Paul Rudd as Scott Lang as Ant-Man on screen is actually pretty great. They did a pretty good job at translating that Ant-Man suit to the big screen. It doesn't look silly at all. It actually looks really good, and it still manages to look like Ant-Man. And also the CGI with the shrinking, I actually think that also looks really good. Some really great special effects there. Nothing to really complain about. And seeing him ride ants, like flying ants, and interact with ants sounds really silly, but it's really cool. And when Anthony the ant dies, it is somehow sad. How did this movie achieve that? I do not know, but I am proud of it. Also, we can't forget the supporting characters are also pretty great. Luis is simply a supporting character who just sort of works with Scott and nicks stuff with him, but he is somehow one of the most memorable characters in the entire MCU, which is kind of crazy. And also, the other friends in the group that nick stuff. They are also pretty memorable, especially the Russian bloke who was actually Polka Dot Man in the Suicide Squad. Fun fact. And also you've got Scott Lang's daughter, and it's crazy to think that she's going to become a superhero very soon. Man, that's weird. Yeah, oh, and also you've got Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas. How cool is that? Ant-Man is played by Michael Douglas. Well, the original Ant-Man anyway. But man, that is great. I really like Michael Douglas.
And now you try to steal my research?
If only you'd protected Janet with such ferocity, Dr. Pym.
Easy, Hank.
You mention my wife again, and I'll show you ferocity. When did this happen?
Nothing's happening.
Whoa, hold on. Something's kind of happening.
Well, if that's the case, shoot me again.
So, Ant-Man is a fairly unique film, like, for the fact that it is an origin film for Ant-Man, even though Ant-Man was an already existing hero in the MCU canon. So yeah, it's already unique for that reason, but also, this is the first MCU heist movie. We don't get many of those, and man, I like heist movies quite a lot, so I'm glad this was a heist movie, and it was a pretty entertaining heist to watch. And Ant-Man just suits that style of movie because he's Ant-Man. He can shrink. He can literally go inside computers. So like, he can get around pretty easily, and you can do some pretty cool stuff with a heist with Ant-Man. But that's not the only cool thing in this movie. The final battle is so cool and creative. Like, if someone had the idea, yo, let's make a superhero movie where the final battle takes place on a toy Thomas the Tank Engine train set. If someone said that to you, you'd think, mate, what have you been sniffing? But it manages to be a really great final battle and really unique. And it's even funnier when you see the POV shots of Ant-Man's daughter, and she's just seeing random stuff on her train set move about. It's just funny. It's great. Now being a bit more negative on the film, I'm going to talk about some of the things I weren't a huge fan of when it came to the Ant-Man film. First of all, well, the plot of the film feels very similar to the original Iron Man film. Don't get me wrong, this film does quite a few new and creative things that no other film has really done in the MCU. But when you just look at the plot for this film, it does look really similar to the Iron Man one. Guy has fancy suit, other business guy gets really jealous, makes another fancy suit that's very similar, and they fight it out because they want to fight over the technology. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Yellow Jacket as a villain, since he is basically just Obadiah Stane, but with a less sexy voice. So, yeah, personally, they could have been a little bit more creative with the plot, since this is just really the same formula as the original Iron Man film. But I still like the plot of the film, I guess, because of the unique things they do and how Ant-Man already exists, and like, he's a new Ant-Man, but there was an Ant-Man years ago. I like all that stuff. I think that's really cool and interesting that they did that. But the plot, yeah, it's just Iron Man, really, isn't it? Okay, so this is a Marvel film. Credit scenes. There are two of them here. The first one is a tease for Hope Van Dyne to become the Wasp, and it's not exactly a memorable MCU credit scene, but it is really like the only thing that was like getting me hyped for the Ant-Man sequel. So I'll say that was a pretty good credit scene. But the second credit scene was just like a clip from Captain America Civil War, and man, if you just watch Ant-Man and that clip before watching Civil War, which a lot of people would have done since this came out before Civil War, you wouldn't really understand it, because it's like in the middle of the Civil War movie, and they're like having a conversation with Winter Soldier, and you have no idea what they're talking about. So yeah, the second one is not a very good credit scene. I mean, you could have just put Ant-Man will return at the end of the movie like Marvel usually does, instead of like showing, oh yo, he's gonna be in Civil War, because it was just a bit confusing for people at the time. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and give Ant-Man a B. I'd say that's a pretty good score. It's really it's a solid film. I'd say it's a solid superhero film. Ant-Man seems like a silly character, but they were able to make the film still feel serious, since, you know, this guy, the villain, he's irresponsible and all that bollocks, and he's got some very impressive and dangerous technology. Some other things I'd like to mention: we got a cameo from Falcon in the movie, which I actually did quite like. They did a fight scene with Ant-Man and Falcon. I actually did like that scene. And also the scene where Scott Lang is stuck in the quantum realm. Man, there are some sexy visuals in that scene, not gonna lie. So yeah, I do like this film. B is a good score. Ant-Man, I would definitely recommend it to you. And by the way, Happy New Year. Goodbye. Phase 3 next year. Yeah, I'm actually going to be making a video on the War Machine Ogre channel discussing what videos I will be making in 2022 on every channel. Podcast channel, Shrek Stack channel, Iron Ogre channel, War Machine Ogre channel, you name it. Anyway, bye.
Ants!